our loyalty to your supremacy as the only creator of heaven and earth. Therefore, by the wisdom you have created in your sons and daughters towards the dissemination of positive orientations and strategic wisdom in recalling our history through this great platform known as BCB, I say this day, may your name be glorified forever. We bring forth this hour and time before your chosen ones all over the world, as many that will key in onto this broadcast from BCB this day, may they be blessed as your great name is exalted. This platform and radio station BCB is a peculiar and unique instrument which you have mandated in the propagation of the freedom of your people in this new great nation of ours that must be actualized. Therefore, throughout every segment of this program, let your name be glorified. Let everything contained in the content of the informations and news sector to everything that will rise up on this very program be as educated and educating to your people as the life you have created yourself. Thank you, Father, because you have answered our prayer. In the mighty name of Chiokiki, we have declared. Amen.
Land of the rising sun, we long and cherish, beloved home, land of our brave heroes. We must defend our lives, so we shall perish. We shall protect our hearts from all our foes. But if the prize is dead for all we hold dear, then let us die without a shred of fear. Hail to Biafra, consecrated nation. Oh, Father, let this be us holy pledge. Defending thee shall be our dedication.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, bringing you news, cultural, and educational programs. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Sing it, sister. Oh, freedom.
This is Rose Ama coming to you with BCB News Summary. News from Biafra land. While Fulani herdsmen have been rampaging and massacring residents in various communities, some leaders in Ebonyi and Ekiti states have indicated that they would donate land to the herdsmen for ranching. Responding to this development, Nnamdi Kanu warned governors and traditional rulers against giving lands to herdsmen. Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, has warned that Fulani herdsmen have no land for permanent settlement in the whole of southern Nigeria, particularly the southeast. Kanu warned that any southeast or south-south governor, traditional ruler, or president general of any community that cedes any space for ranching or for financial reasons to Fulani herdsmen is ultimately calling for the death of their people. In a case of human trafficking, police in Anambra State have uncovered a baby factory fronting as a bar and brothel in Nnewi. They also found 4 pregnant girls awaiting delivery during a raid on the building named Cool Joint Bar. The purported owner, Gladys Morio Ikegwonu, is presently at large. In other Biafra land news, members of the Polububo community, also known as Sekelewu in Warri North local government area of Delta State, claim that their people are facing a death sentence due to the environmental devastation of their areas. Members of the community have raised alarm over crude oil spillage polluting their homes, farmlands, and rivers. The pollution is believed to have been caused by the operations of the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company, NPDC, which operates OML 40 on behalf of the NPDC Elcrest joint adventure. In Nigerian national news, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has emphasized that security chiefs have marching orders to go harder on criminals, including shooting on sight anyone found illegally with AK-47. Interestingly, the convener of Concerned Nigerians, Deji Adeyanju, has described President Muhammadu Buhari as the worst president ever to rule Nigeria. The human rights activist suggested this while condemning the president for the current spate of insecurity in the country. Other groups seem to agree with Adeyanju. The Christian Lawyers Fellowship of Nigeria, Class Fund, has observed with dismay the increasing level of insecurity in the country, which has led to constant kidnapping and abduction of students in the northern part of the country. The lawyers lamented that, quote, the alarming increase in banditry, kidnapping, and communal clashes has occasioned unquantifiable human and material losses and displacement of indigenous communities, unquote. The national president of the Parents Teachers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Haruna Danjuma, has called on the states and federal government of Nigeria as a matter of urgency to bring an end to the increased attacks on schools by bandits and terrorists in the northern region. The Nigerian federal government has responded that it has told school children that everybody needs to be vigilant, adding, we have passed this message to all our schools. Boko Haram insurgents are back in the news. Gunmen suspected to be Boko Haram insurgents on Tuesday attacked Katarko community in Gujba, Local Government Council of Yobe State. The insurgents also burnt down a primary school and a healthcare center located in the community. Warn bandits in local language, not English, Senator Sani has told Buhari. He said, quote, all warnings issued to the bandits should be made in the local language they can understand. Warning them in English is so far futile, unquote. On COVID news, fake COVID-19 vaccines are in circulation, says the federal government of Nigeria. The federal government has stated that private importation of COVID-19 vaccines has not been authorized due to reports of substandard falsified vaccines. The National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, panel sitting in Abuja has expressed displeasure over the refusal of policemen mentioned in alleged extrajudicial killing to appear before it. The hashtag NSAS panel says something's wrong with the Nigerian police because the officers are ignoring the panel. This concludes our news summary. This is Rose Ama. Let's get wiser. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
No more moaning, yeah.
Ndị ebe anyị ndewonu. This is Rose Ama. Let's get wiser. Death in Biafra land. A nation without memory or history does not know itself. A nation that does not know its own history is bound to repeat the errors of its past. We must know our history. We must know where the rain began to beat us so that we may protect ourselves in the future. In this section of our program, we look at ourselves through culture, particularly through the writings of our own authors, to remind us of the past, help us better understand the present in preparation for the future. In a series of contributions that will form the cultural component of our program, we will use art, literature, and stories to create a narrative about ourselves with the goal of exploring the nature and significance of Biafra. By looking at stories about important moments of our history, we hope that our program will help to inform our audiences about our present and future purposes. Let's begin. Nigeria's orchestrated massacre of Igbos did not begin with the Fulani herdsmen. They are the new scourge, the new locusts sent to devour us. In fact, herdsmen have been rampaging through Biafra land, kidnapping and killing our people and raping our women with a singular purpose: the occupation of our farmlands as grazing grounds for their cattle. For over a decade, communities in Biafra land have experienced atrocities and aggression in the hands of these herdsmen. Take, for instance, the Nimbi massacre of April 25th, 2016, when over 500 armed herdsmen attacked 7 villages in the early hours of the morning. Over 40 people were killed. The perpetrators were not punished. You might ask, where were the security forces who were supposed to protect our people? In fact, this is not the first time that security forces will betray us or participate as collaborators in the massacre of our people. These acts of aggression are a continuation of the genocidal project of the Nigerian national government against Igbos that began a long time ago. Here is world-renowned writer Chinua Achebe describing the massacre of Igbos in 1966 in his book, There Was a Country, based on his observation of the young nation of Biafra between 1966 and 1970. In this section, he talks about pogroms. The pogroms. Looking back, the naively idealistic coup of January 15th, 1966 proved a terrible disaster. It was interpreted with plausibility as a plot by the ambitious Igbo of the East to take control of Nigeria from the Hausa Fulani North. 6 months later, I watched horrified as Northern officers carried out a revenge coup in which they killed Igbo officers and men in large numbers. If it had ended there, the matter might have been seen as a very tragic interlude in nation building, a horrendous tit for tat. But the Northerners turned on Igbo civilians living in the North and unleashed waves of brutal massacres that Colin Legume of the Observer UK was the first to describe as a pogrom. 30,000 civilian men, women, and children were slaughtered. Hundreds of thousands were wounded, maimed, and violated, their homes and property looted and burned, and no one asked any questions. A Sierra Leonean living in northern Nigeria at that time wrote home in horror, quote, "The killing of the Igbos has become a state industry in Nigeria," unquote. What terrified me, Achebe continued, about the massacres in Nigeria was this. If it was only a question of rioting in the streets and so on, that would be bad enough. But it could be explained. It happens everywhere in the world. But in this particular case, a detailed plan for mass killing was implemented by the government, the army, the police, the very people who were there to protect life and property. Not a single person has been punished for these crimes. It was not just human nature, a case of somebody hating his neighbor and chopping off his head. It was something far more devastating because it was a premeditated plan that involved careful coordination, awaiting only the right spark. Throughout the country at this time, but particularly in Igbo intellectual circles, there was much discussion of the difficulties of coexisting in a nation with such disparate peoples and religions and cultural backgrounds. As early as October 1966, some were calling for outright war. Most of us, however, were still hoping for a peaceful solution. Many talked of a confederation, though few knew how it would look. In the meantime, the Eastern region was tackling the Herculean task of resettling the refugees who were pouring into the East in hundreds of thousands. It was said at that time that the number of displaced Nigerian citizens fleeing from other parts of the nation back to Eastern Nigeria was close to 1 million. Achebe has laid it all out for us. So ask yourselves, what has changed? What has really changed? Is history repeating itself? For how long will we wait or remain silent while the nation tries to work on peace? What does peace mean if we will not be there to see it or to experience it? My people, let us learn from history. This is Rose Ama from the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB. Let us get wiser.
Oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave.
The heart and soul of Biafra. Compatriots, fellow Biafrans, After suffering terrible persecution and torture for more than 50 years at the hands of Southern Nigeria, what do you expect from Biafra and her leaders? In fact, what will be the heart and soul of Biafra? The heart and soul of Biafra will be freedom and liberty for all, economic and social justice for all, dignity and respect of your human rights, honest, truthful, effective, and accountable leadership that is not corrupt, and a society where your creativity, entrepreneurial abilities, high intelligence, hard work will find expression in gainful employment for everybody, control over your natural resources and private property, prosperity for all, legitimate pursuit of happiness and leisure, long life for you and your children, and security and safety for all. All this will result in peace and peaceful coexistence in families and among neighbors and communities. A sovereign independent state of Biafra is the heart and soul of every Anang, Efik, Ibibio, Igbo, Ijo, Ogoja, Ogoni, Ishekiri, Isoko, Eshan, Urobo, man, woman, and child. Now let us give you an outline of how the Republic of Biafra will function. We will give you the details in subsequent broadcasts, while we advise you to read the Biafran Charter that is available on and offline. The state of Biafra will be built on the principles of self-determination and autonomy. Every ethnic group, every community will exercise the freedom to govern itself, make its own laws, provide for the safety and protection of its own members, determine for itself what priorities it wants to pursue, plan its own educational program, economic development, industrial and technological program, social and cultural development, and the general infrastructure for the welfare and destiny of its people without interference from any outside bodies. The state of Biafra will be built on the principles of social and economic justice for all. Every Biafran will be guaranteed justice, regardless of group affiliation, language, domicile, region, or any other characteristics. Individuals and groups will exercise 100% control over their property and resources, including their land and the minerals in them, farms, rivers, streams, houses, and any other private property. No government shall have the right to forcefully appropriate property and resources belonging to individuals or communities. The state of Biafra will be built on the principle of liberty, freedom from arbitrary and despotic arrests, beating, detention, extortion, and imprisonment by the police, army, and other agents of government. The people of Biafra will reserve the right and freedom to use every means at their disposal to resist and throw off any arbitrary and despotic imposition by any government or its functionaries, including the right to terminate membership of the Biafran state. The state of Biafra will be built on the principle of full respect for human rights of individuals and the protection of the civil rights and liberties of all citizens and groups. Freedom of speech, expression, assembly, press, and religion will be guaranteed by the state. Right to life, right to one's language, right to communication with whoever one chooses, right to protest, right to disassociate, right to vote and be voted for, right to participate in trade or occupation of one's choice, right to fair employment practices, right to declare trade disputes or strike, right to clean and healthy environment, right to legal protection, right to popular participation in legislative processes, and the right to live and do business wherever one wants will be guaranteed and protected by the state of Biafra. The state of Biafra will be built on the principle of respect and admiration for labor. The state will guarantee every able-bodied Biafran the right to work. Biafrans are industrious, resourceful, and inventive. Their energies, skills, talents that are so abundant in Biafra, but which unfortunately have been stifled, muzzled, and squashed by Nigeria will be released. These energies, talents, and skills will be unleashed to propel Biafra into the Committee of Scientific and Technological Nations in the shortest possible time. Labor will be respected, work will be honored, merit and productivity will be the criteria for reward in labor. Equal opportunities for employment for all Biafrans shall be the watchword of the Biafran nation. The state of Biafra will be built on the principle of strong moral character. Traditionally, the people of Biafra have been a holy people. They treat human beings and nature around them with respect. Sadly, Nigeria has destroyed the excellent moral character of Biafrans and dragged them down to the level of moral depravity of Nigeria. But Biafrans will rebuild and reestablish their strong moral character. Every Biafran must be his brother's keeper. He must be honorable and truthful. He must not engage in corrupt practices, giving and taking bribes, stealing government or public money and property, and cheating his fellow Biafrans or government. He must be patriotic, freedom-loving, and must stand resolutely against any forms of injustice, oppression, and victimization. He must be progressive and must never slavishly obey any evil laws designed to enslave him. The state of Biafra will be built on the principle of honesty, trustworthiness, and exemplary leadership. Biafran leaders must be honest and trustworthy at all times. They must not steal, cheat, and lie to the people. They must be a model of sound moral character. They derive their power and authority from the people who elect them and exercise this for people's welfare and at their discretion. Biafran leaders will be accountable to the people at all times. They are the people's leaders, not their rulers. Any Biafran leader found to be corrupt, autocratic, or dictatorial will immediately be removed by the people. He relinquishes power and authority anytime the people demand that he does so. In essence, a leader in Biafra is the servant of the people. The state of Biafra will be built on the principle of the importance and value of the single individual. The single individual is the smallest irreducible unit of the people. The people cannot really exist without this single individual. Therefore, the state of Biafra will make every effort to ensure the survival, protection, welfare, and well-being of this individual. Advances in agriculture to guarantee abundant food supply will be a priority. No people can achieve anything if they cannot feed themselves. The return of thousands of highly qualified Biafran medical personnel and other scientists from Europe and America, as well as those at home, and the training of new ones will adequately provide health care for Biafrans. A healthy nation will be a productive and prosperous nation. Efficient communication is the cornerstone of all technological development and efficient utilization of manpower. Cheap and efficient communication will be a priority. Since manpower cannot be effectively utilized and productivity maximized if you cannot move large masses of people quickly, effectively, and efficiently. Transportation and aviation will be accorded very high priority. The security of life and property is one of the fundamental needs of human beings. Therefore, law and order and the protection of life and property will be accorded high priority. The protection of our environment from erosion and pollution, especially the pollution of farms, rivers, and streams in the oil-producing areas of Biafra, will be a priority. The pursuit, establishment, and maintenance of very high-quality education, the cornerstone of technological development, and robust economy will be a priority. The provision of all necessary infrastructures to promote trade, commerce, industry, and easy access to all parts of the world will be a priority. The provision of opportunities for a good life for all Biafrans will be the ultimate priority. Fellow Biafrans, for too long, you have been trapped in the rot, the muck, this stinking putrefaction that is called Nigeria. At times, it seemed as if there is no hope or salvation. We now have generations of Biafrans who have never had the good fortune of seeing one honest public servant, civilian or military, having 3 good meals in a day, drinking clean water, using decent public transportation, being in school for 6 months without being chased out by the police, being interviewed for a job, having a meaningful job, and making a meaningful living by decent means. Those of you who travel out of Nigeria cannot remember the last time any airline employee treated you with a modicum of respect while you carried Devil Nigeria's green passport. So nationally, you are treated as a slave, a third-class citizen at best, while internationally, you are treated as a criminal, a crook, drug dealer, thief, and con man. The reason is simple. You are Nigerian. It is time for all that to change. Join the movement to reclaim your nation, Biafra. Biafra is your nation. Biafra is your pride. Biafra is your hope. Biafra is your salvation. Biafra is your right. Biafra is your own. Take it now. I'm Mazi Odogu. I come in peace.
No more mourning, yeah.
Ndị ebe anyị, ndewonu. This is Rose Ama coming to you from the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB. Let's get wiser. May our ancestors continue to protect us all and give us long life and prosperity. May our ancestors guide us on this long road for freedom and justice for our people. Ndị be anyị, permit me to use this unique occasion of the International Women's Day to address a pertinent problem that we have shied away from for years and inadvertently pushed under the rug. I am speaking about the fate of widows in our communities and by extension, Biafra land in general. I come to you as a daughter and sister who is gravely concerned about what is happening to widows in our communities. I want to believe that the women who present these issues at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women are not making up stories. I want to also believe that the women I interviewed at home about these practices are not trying to hoodwink me with stories of horror. Frankly, I do not recall the horrible stories I have heard in the past few years about the fate of widows during my childhood, and truly, the current atrocious treatment of widows in Biafra land frightens me. I am really worried. Are you? You should be worried. Whether or not you agree with me, the reality is that widows are being maltreated somewhere in our communities. It does not matter that it is not in your community or home, but it is happening. The women I have talked with confirm that such experience occurs. So, are you still not worried? I want to remind us that the widows who are being maltreated in our communities are our mothers, sisters, daughters, aunties, relatives, and friends. You know them. So why are you not worried about what is happening to them? Why treat them as if they were not human beings? When did this hostile treatment begin? It seems that we have abandoned our cherished cultural heritage of caring for one another. In the days of my grandmother, as I recall, a widow was supported by her community if she chose to remain with it. Her children were also protected from harm. But today, I understand that immediately after a husband's death, a widow is terrorized by her umudi. In many cases, they take away any wealth, things like money, property, or other possessions belonging to her husband. In effect, she and her children are denied their inheritance and rendered destitute. I realize that many of you may have heard these stories or know these conditions, while others may not, but please indulge me for a moment. In some cases, the widow and her children are driven from their home, and most absurdly, sometimes, court actions are instituted against her. Quite often, too, she's accused of killing her husband. We must not also forget the horrible traditional rituals where a widow is asked to bathe with water used to wash the dead husband's body. She may even be forced to drink the water, or step over the dead body, or sleep in the same room as the deceased husband to prove her innocence. Where she is not driven out of the house, she's compelled to marry a brother-in-law or become his ward to secure her protection or her children's. Do these sound familiar to you? What I have described here is only a small aspect of what happens to some of our mothers, sisters, and daughters once they are widowed. So, why are you not worried? I am. Think about it. When did women in our communities stop being important because they have lost their husbands? Do men lose their significance to their communities once their wives die? If men have rights and are still considered relevant to their communities, why do women not have the same rights? Do they not also contribute to the development of their communities? Remember that every action or inaction has consequences that affect all of us. The horrible treatment of widows in our communities also affects or causes harm to their children and the society in general. My brothers, my sisters, my people, here are some of the destructive effects of these hostilities on the widows and their children, as listed to me by women I talked to. Bear in mind that these children are still our children, because a man's death does not disown him of his children. So, in the voices of these women, here are some of the consequences they have identified. The women talk about early marriages for the girls who are forced to help their families out of destitution. They told me that some women and girls turn to sex trade or prostitution in order to make ends meet. Some nurses indicated that some of these women and girls contract sexually transmitted infections, STIs, or HIV/AIDS. And some widows develop high blood pressure and sometimes suffer early death, leaving their children as orphans. And often these children become victims of human trafficking, child trafficking, sex slavery, arms dealing, robbery, gang violence, drug addiction, drug dealing, and kidnapping. So these are the fates of our widows and their children. Frankly, we can expand the list. How do all these not affect our communities? Our members, as members of a common community, we all suffer because the fate of these widows and their children also affects our survival when some of these wounded people return to our communities to punish and destroy us as they turn to criminality, and then we blame them. But worse is the loss of human life, as well as the contributions of these widows and their children to the development of our communities. So you might be asking, why this? What can we do? Well, that's a good question, really. What can we do? Frankly, we cannot have a truly independent and just Biafra if any of our members are dehumanized, devalued, or denied of their dignity and rights. Women must be equal and contributing members of this new society as they have always been. The truth is that we are responsible for what happens to our widows, since their lives are tied to ours. If they have children, those children are ours too. Their success or failure is also ours. We can stop these negative practices that are plaguing our society today by recognizing that women do not become irrelevant and lose their rights as human beings and as members of our communities because their husbands have died. We must show compassion and support all widows at a time when they are vulnerable. We must protect their children because they are our future. Really, the time has come when reason should prevail. The world is changing, and we can see that every day. We must restore the rights and dignity of widows by banning or working to end these obnoxious cultural practices that treat widows inhumanely. Instead of forcing them out of their homes, we must ensure that they and their children are safe and that widows retain the right to their husband's assets. Widows must have the right to make decisions about their own and their children's well-being. We must use our voices to call upon our leaders to establish legislations and policies that protect widows. My people, my good people, if a man does not lose his right as a human being because his wife is dead, a woman should not lose hers because her husband is dead. So please, let us give this issue strong consideration for the benefit of our society. I believe strongly that a new Biafra cannot be a place where widows and their children are subjugated. If we are to survive as a just society in the future, all members must have equality. All must have human rights. The dignity of all members must be protected. This, my brother, my people, my brothers, my sisters, my people, this is my plea to you. So thank you for indulging me. May we remain steadfast in this struggle. I remain your sister and daughter, Rose Ama. Now let's get wiser. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
No more moaning, yeah.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.